Greetings, MelVee family. What a moment, what a privilege I have to be here with you. This is another episode of My Journey with God. This is a place where we talk about people's life stories, their history, which we believe is His story, God's work in their lives and how He has led them through the ordinary and the extraordinary. And today I'm so privileged to bring you a story you don't want to go away. We brought it all the way from Germany. I'll tell you why Germany in particular, but it's out of Africa into Germany and back into Africa. We have a young lady, brilliant, exceptional. I've watched her talk about global issues in the media. And before I go any further, if you're new on this platform, I would like to invite you to like and subscribe and follow this ministry. And if possible, please donate and help us to do more programs such as these. And I really would appreciate if you can also join our membership part of this channel. Having said that, I just want to welcome Christine and say greetings and how are you?
I'm very good, Alda. It's so good to be with you today. Thank you for having me.
Blessed to have you finally here. This has been an interview that has been in the planning for some time.
It has
I don't even remember when we first talked about it, but I know it's been a while.
It has been.
And I must say thanks so much for letting me know you are around in Africa. Yeah. People might think I'm in Germany today. Welcome to the Journey with God.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited about this.
I don't know where we can start, but let me just say, as usual, I say, let's go way back.
Yeah.
When you first started and you realized, oh, my name is Christine. What was happening? Who was around you? And where were you?
Well, I guess that would be really where my story began, which is in Harare, Zimbabwe, where I was born. And I still have memories of my first day in school, grade 1. For example.
Is that so?
Yes, I have memories of my cousins and I playing in Shona. There's a game called Mhundwa.
Yes.
So as kids would be imitating what we see being done in the home, right?
Yeah,
so we would take flowers and cook them, for example.
And take mud.
Playing with mud, yeah, exactly. So I have these really sort of special memories. And then, of course, I remember my first day of school vividly. I remember just wanting to go right to the back so that I could take a cue from everybody else. Just that nervousness, right? And I just have, such profound memories of having my hair braided and the aunties bribing me with sweets so I could sit still. All of these things that I see happening. Yeah, today in Daichim. And the aunt I'm named after, Tete Kiri, Christine, my dad's little sister.
All right.
I just remember her being one of my favorites because she spoiled me so much. I was her namesake.
Right.
And so it was really nice to have that. And then I just remember cousins, family, Anabankuru. So yeah, I have really sweet memories from back home.
And wow, that's quite exciting. Now, of all of those people, what is the influence they had on you? Because it looks like you had a big family.
Yeah, absolutely. From both my parents, my father's late, but both my parents come from big families, 7, 8 siblings on either side. Yeah, you don't see those families these days.
No.
But yeah, so you can imagine we were many. My dad, I think, would be one of the most influential people in my life, and I would only realize this later. My dad had a way of, he would call me up Tete. He used to call me Tete because I'm named after my aunt,
really?
His sister Christine. So he'd say, Tete, where? And he would show me Venus and Serena Williams playing on the court, and he would say, you can play tennis one day. And he would get me a racket, and next thing we're whacking balls together. And then he would call me, Tete, one of Mariah Carey, you can sing like this one day. And he would take out his guitar and make me hit high notes like Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey.
Wow.
So I think for me, and I realized this much later in my life, what my father was doing, and I don't know if it was deliberate on his part, but just planting this idea that you could become anything, right? And that you could, if you worked at something, you could really just dream big. Don't limit yourself. And a lot of these things we would see per TV, and he would call me and say, oh, look, let's try this. He played chess. He would try, come, let me try and teach you chess. You know what I mean? So like I said, at that time, I'm a child. I'm not understanding what this is doing, but I could see later on how sort of like crazy I was with the dreams.
Right.
And I understood that, oh, this must have been what my father planted. And my mother would later tell me stories of how she would call my father and I, the two dreamers. Because we would sit and he would just let this imagination go, right?
Run through your mind.
And later that would, develop into me being this kind of person that doesn't see borders and boundaries, but really in terms of how I dream. And I think that would be something that I could say, in the short time I had with my father, because by the time I turned about 15, he passed away.
Okay.
He left me with that. And it's something I still have today, I have to say.
Let's go back to him naming you, Christine.
Yes.
What was the story behind it? What is this Tete? This Tete must be very special to him.
So she was the only girl.
In their family?
In their family.
Wow.
So you can imagine she was spoiled.
She was the princess.
She was the princess. And she particularly had a way with my father, right? So she had him wrapped around her finger. So my mother tells a story of how, in fact, if you look on my my birth certificate, the first name is Rutendo.
Okay.
That is the name my mother wanted me to have.
All right.
But then they agreed, okay, I'll have the name Christine, right? It would be, so it's Rutendo Christine. But then my auntie insisted that I be called Christine. So it wasn't enough that it's in the birth certificate, but that I be called Christine. Yes. So I mean, I look at that dynamic and I think, oh, that's special because I have a little brother now. And I can imagine I would also try to influence my way around. So I can see how that would have happened. But I'm Christine because, my dad had a little sister that he couldn't say no to.
Is Tete still alive now?
Tete is late as well. But the thing is, I also have very good memories of her.
Yes.
And like I said, I grew up being called Tete by my father. That was his nickname for me because I had a Tete and I was Tete in the house.
Wow. I hope it's still carrying with you today.
Yeah,
You're still Tete of the house.
So yeah.
Now, what are some of the lessons you would look back and say you learned? Obviously, Dad planted those ideas.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's amazing when you plant those ideas in a young child, what their world begins to look like.
Exactly, yeah.
And so there must be many other lessons that perhaps from a Christian perspective, they implanted in you.
Yeah.
What are some of those values and principles you take from them?
Oh man, I say to people that I had what I think was one of the most rich childhoods, and not because of material wealth, but because I grew up in the church. And again, this is also something that I would appreciate later on in life. But growing up in that ecosystem where we were taught values, and I grew up in the Seventh-day Adventist church, so you can imagine the teaching that went in, right? Every Sabbath you're going through the lesson studies, the different levels. We're learning exactly Pathfinders. We did all of these things, and so this foundation was laid. I even remember, in fact, some of my best memories about church were the children's stories, because I love stories. Stories really are the best way of teaching me things. So I love a good story. And children's story was my favorite part of service because, I would listen to the story out of interest. And of course, at the end of the story came this valuable lesson that we could take on. I still remember some of these stories. And so I think that foundation of knowing that there's a God, and then knowing right from wrong, but above all, for me, I understood it very, very early on that there was a God that I could hope in.
Okay.
Right? It's a big word now. Obviously, I wouldn't have it articulated in that way at that age. But I knew that if something was going wrong, if something wasn't going right, I could pray. And there was always this understanding, God will take care of it. God will fix it. I can articulate it like this now. Back then, I wouldn't have been able to, as I say. But that was something that I always had. And I can trace this way back, to being in school, having difficulty with certain subjects, and understanding that God will carry me through, going through exams and knowing that I pray and God will help me as I study and all of these things. So I really, 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 from that end, because I always had this anchor, I had this perspective, and I had this security, so to say, and it's seen me through.
So faith was implanted at that early age.
Faith in God, absolutely.
Yes, and you grew up with it in the church. And how has it influenced your journey? I know this is a very broad stretch question. How did that turn out to become part of your life later on? How does it influence you?
Wow. I mean, so if I think about where I am today in terms of the work that I do and how I got there, and where I was before all of that, right? I couldn't have told you exactly, right, how it panned out. But it's still that same faith, right? So you get out of matric and now you're in the real world, right? And maybe you're not politically connected. But I knew that God had a plan for my life and God would see me through. God saw me through university, and God saw me through in terms of even how I got internships to be able to enter the industry. Our industry is difficult to get into, right? Once you're in, I think you can sort of make your way around, but a lot of people just struggle at that point of getting in. And you could see how God was opening doors for me. But that was always my expectation. So we were raised to expect from God, right? So I would go demanding things from God because that's what we had been taught, right? Yeah, exactly. So we had been taught, you go and you ask God. So I remember, when you pick subjects, people had even said, oh, journalism is difficult, and, just people giving advice, and I didn't have many people encouraging me to go into journalism. And
there was no one in the family who did journalism.
And even outside of that, I remember even at the universities, at school, when they're trying to tap into, okay, what different career options do you have? That wasn't really one people put forward. And of course, I understand that. And I can tell you later that God, knowing the person that I am, the kind of wanderlust that I have inside of me, that was the perfect career option for me. So much so that wasn't my first choice even. But I'm in this profession today, and I can tell you that, okay, this was God setting me up to being and doing something that I didn't even know I would love this much. So yeah, it was just, I think Obama has this one of his books is titled The Audacity of Hope. But I think for us, it was just the audacity of faith, right? We were raised and we were taught, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And so you went out there and you said to God, I would like to do this. Obviously, as you mature, you approach God differently. Yeah. But in those initial days, I'm getting out of school, I said, God, I want to make it. I don't want to be ordinary. I want to be extraordinary. And whatever it is that we're going to do, you're going to see me through. And that was just implanted. We were taught as kids in church. And
it's as if though you're saying you delighted yourself so much in the Lord that He gave you the desires of your 100%. Heart. In fact, even some of those desires you didn't even know you had.
Yeah, to the point of how God knows you better than you know yourself. And this is why nowadays I'm not so prescriptive to God. I'm not very specific, because I know I'm potentially shortchanging myself. You know what I mean? It's now I don't even trust myself, because even my wildest dreams, God can exceed them. But also the other thing is, growing up in church, we started at a young age standing in front of people.
Wow.
In church, pathfinders come and recite to the church what you've been learning. Sermons. So a lot of people ask me, oh, where did you learn to speak in public? I said, I learned in church. That was my first opportunity, standing in front of adult people. So when that became something I had to do later in life, I was kind of familiar with the setting of, you're a young person and you stand up in front of grown people. And remember, the Bible, this can be complex math, so we had to go and explain to the adults what we're learning about the Bible, and really apply ourselves. So that is where God also trained me in that sense. So by the time I was picking extra curricular activities in school, I sort of went down the route of public speaking, debating, etc. And I was in such a natural place because of all the exposure that we had from being in church and standing in front of the church as a platform manager, or whatever the case may be, during divine service. All of this was sort of training ground for me.
Wow. Now, let's talk about way back again.
Yes.
The first day at school. You said you remember it.
Yes.
What do you remember most about that?
Primary, guys.
What do you remember most about that?
Just being so scared. And I remember the prefect. So it was, being ushered everywhere. I constantly thought, are we allowed to do this? Is this allowed? Can I go there? So I remember it was a rainy day even. And then there was a tuck shop. So the leader, the prefect, they called them at that time, was taking us by umbrella to go to the tuck shop and back again. Okay. But my very, very first memory was when we were told to stand in line. And I went right to the back of the line, right? To me, that was the safest place you could be, because I didn't want to be in the front. I wanted to be able to watch from not just the person in the front, but from all the people in front of me. So I just remembered having this sort of inhibition, and still to a large extent, I have that today. If I walk into a room, I'm not necessarily always going to go to the front. I sometimes have to say, no, go to, you know what I mean? Because I think the temptation is to just don't go unnoticed, don't be too Don't be too obvious. So I remember that vividly, and I remember break times. I even remember the lay of the land, the field, how big it looked, and how big the other children were. And so I have that real. But it was just I even remember the line, just me, like, I don't know. Somebody said, "Go to the back and wait there," and then we were all filed into the class, and I just felt safer
at the back.
Yeah, for some reason. So that was it.
Yeah. So you are in school, primary, secondary.
Yes.
How does your faith influence your studying and your progression?
So I have to be honest, I think in primary school, I mean, you would have just been going through the motions. But I got to high school. I remember one of the first things I did in grade 8 is I signed up for, it was called, this was like where the Christians met every morning before school. So it was on Monday and it was on Wednesdays. In fact, one of my friends from high school, Linda, and we actually talk about that because we joined together.
Was it scripture?
Yes, exactly. Something, I can't remember the exact word, but so we would meet in the morning, and it was just, we would share devotion before the school day started. So it was like a ministry at the school. And I remember that was a natural fit for me because of my background as a Christian, and we liked it. So it meant that, when we got to school on a Monday and a Wednesday, we didn't have as much time with the others just talking, because we would be because it would finish just as the bell rang for us to go into classes. So I remember that, and just that being a very natural place for me. I felt confident always speaking in settings like that. In other things, I was maybe less confident, but when it came to scripture discussions, my hand would fly up. I even remember, before, like in church, I would attend, I wasn't even a teacher, but I would attend the teacher's lesson. For people in the Adventist church would understand.
Good early morning
the
lesson.
early one. And I felt really stimulated by that, because I really, 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 I loved the Bible, and I had a strong command of this. So in high school, again, it was always, and I think it was the challenge of the likes of Daniel and them, right? These guys were exceptional, so we ought to be exceptional. So I had this constant struggle when I wasn't top of the class, and I wasn't always, to be honest, that, we should be standing out. We should be like the Daniels. So there was always this understanding that, God's children are exceptional. Right. And that's what you needed to be academically or whatever. So for me, the motivation wasn't the family name or whatever, but it's my understanding that God's children, wherever they are, should be exceptional.
But obviously with that philosophy and that drive, life can bring in curveballs and challenges. What are some of the challenges God took you through in your education and high school years?
Yeah, so I think the biggest crisis for me came when my father passed away. And this derailed me for a few good years. And again, like, I can sit back today and I can understand, okay, that whole period, I was completely off, because I had such a good bond with my father. And so his loss was really hard for me to take. And I remember it affected my spiritual life as well. To a point where I was very angry with God. And because I couldn't understand why. Today I can sit back and I can tell you, I have an understanding of that. But that derailed me in so many ways, right? So this, for a few good years, I wasn't motivated, I was just sort of going through the motions, basically, and that affected my performance. It affected my interest in things. I remember there was a teacher who pulled me out of a class one day and said, "What's happened to you?" She asked me explicitly. She said, "What's going on? What's happened?" And I remember, like, my throat. When you have that lump in your throat.
Couldn't speak.
And I couldn't speak because I knew what the problem was, but I didn't want to have the discussion. And so I would, over the years, I'd have a few teachers actually approach me and say, "What's going on?" So I think they picked up on this behavior. But then again, what got me out of that glut, right, was also there had been this spiritual intervention where God had sent somebody to speak to me, to remind me who I was, that I was a child of God, and that God would see me through. And so after a few years, I picked up again. And was just in time, because I needed to now be exiting school, readying myself to get into university and all of that. So that intervention also came at the perfect time.
Perhaps we could help somebody out there because of what you carried through. But again, it's as far as you can go, because we don't want to relive those dark memories and painful times. But with time, God teaches you, because we learn life through hindsight.
Yes.
Life makes sense when you look where you've been.
It's 2020 vision, that's right.
Yeah, so what got you out? You said someone came through and said this.
Yeah.
But coming from a Christian home, what was the role of your faith?
Yeah.
The Bible, prayer, fellowship. How did that contribute to you coming through?
So it gave me a very safe community, because that's the other thing. So because through it all, even though I was disengaged at a personal level, I was still in the ecosystem, right? We go to church, we go to prayer meeting, you still have to learn the lesson, you still have to participate, and the friends that you make, you still associate with a certain group of people. And I think that saved me from getting caught up in the wrong things, because I think a lot of people, young people especially, start mingling with the wrong friends, right? So there was always this understanding that I knew what right from wrong was. That is because I was kept in the ecosystem. And if there's one thing my mother did not negotiate over, was church. You know, we had to be there. We had to be participating.
She's always been like that.
Oh, my goodness. You know, to my brother and I even say, did you even care about school? Do you know what I mean? Because church was, you know what I mean? You could maybe spin your way out of going to school one day and, whatever, I'm sick. But with church, it was not negotiable. And I think she understood what she was doing. She understood that this is the best she could give us. I mean, you could be educated fools, ultimately. But she wanted us to have this strong spiritual foundation. And so when you're constantly exposed to that, right, you see what you're supposed to be. Because in church, we had the role models. We had the teaching of what God expects. So whether you wanted to hear it or not, you would hear it. You would hear people's testimonies, right? And these are some things that would encourage you. So the fact that I was kept in this ecosystem, the fact that I didn't have the privilege to say, I don't want to do it anymore, which I probably would have chosen, if we're being honest. I probably would have drifted away and out of it, but I had a mother who said that's not going to happen. And so I stayed in. And as a result, God was able to shield me from some of the things that I might have wandered off and drifted and, you know, gone out to. And I shudder to think what those things could have been, because, you know, young children growing up in a largely secular society, you can just imagine what can go wrong. Also mingling with people who are not necessarily of the same faith.
You know, I've met people who've walked away from God, as they say, or walked away from the church because either the church didn't handle them properly or they didn't support them during the difficult times. But you're talking about an ecosystem of the faith that kept you sane, and covered and protected and prayed
100%,
for, and supported, and testimonies helped you to get your way ahead. But let me bring it back to another ecosystem which we talked about earlier on, which is the family, where you come from. With that disruption, and of course many other things that happen as the families grow up, and maybe even as they move. The great dispensation, Zimbabweans traveled everywhere in the world.
That's right.
How did the family contribute to your faith? Besides the name Christine.
Yes. I mean, goodness. Like I say, so I was then, after my father's passing, my mother raised my little brother and I. And anyone who knows my mother will tell you she is in the church, right? All the activities and everything. So we had a praying household, right? So prayer was a staple. The devotion, just being in church, that influence, right? And I had a mother who loved all the church activities and all, like, her social circle, her whole community. And remember, as children, you just get dragged along to auntie so-and-so, whatever. All church, right? So everywhere you're going, there's prayer, there's Bible reading, there's all of these things. But I also learned that there were people who supported my mother, right? Being a single parent, and that community, which I will always be grateful for. As I say, when people remove themselves from the church, I know that some people have really had genuine experiences where they've been hurt, but this can also be a place where you can go right. And there were people who supported, you know, my mom. There were people who prayed for my mother and us as children, and we saw, and she would tell us, oh, auntie so-and-so did this for you guys. This family, uncle and auntie so-and-so did this for you guys. So that was so important for me. And this is why, you know, the church for me is family. And then I understood, you know, the Bible talks about, you know, blood relatives and the church community. And, you know, the Bible actually contends that your brothers and sisters in the faith are even more related to you than perhaps those that you share blood with. But to me, this was so powerful, witnessing that support, even when my father died, how the church came through and supported us. So that community I would also call my family. I know we were talking about the nuclear family, but this church family, the wider church family, and these aunts and uncles, I see them as parents still to this day.
So let me take a step back a little bit
Yeah.
and go back to the education.
Yes.
Because our career has become one of the biggest arena or platform that God showcases His direction.
Yes.
And what we end up doing.
Yeah.
Out of primary, out of secondary, your academic journey.
Yes.
How did it land you into this career where you are? Maybe you can walk us through some of those steps, how God led you through.
Right. So I remember towards the end of grade 10, going into grade 11 and then matric, for those who will be familiar with the South African education system. I think that is when I realized, okay, there was a future that I needed to ready myself for. I needed to go to university. And so my grades needed to reflect that. So after a few years of just wallowing and, like I said, that was sort of like difficult place I was in after my father's death, I picked up.
So your dad dies when you're in grade what?
It was grade 9.
9?
Yeah.
Just about when you had to go into grade 10,
so
12.
grade 9, and then it's like, I also had a bit of a difficult adolescence. So it just all mixed, the rage of the hormones and then the pain, right?
Yes.
And so I think my mother will tell you, we had our difficulties. I was a very difficult person
Maybe I must
to
bring
manage.
Mom here.
Yeah. And I see people, say to me, because they can't imagine it, but but I can now explain what was going on at that time, just that stubbornness, not wanting to do things, this kind of a thing. But so from the academic perspective, so it wasn't very clear to me what I wanted to be, right? Because I hadn't been applying myself really, right? So there are people who would tell you they've been working towards it. Oh, I want to be a doctor, and they've been working towards it. I wasn't quite there, you know what I mean? And that's why I'm also grateful to God, because He can catch you when you have these moments where you're just not there. So God was just was really just saying, I'm going to have to carry her through until she can stand up and walk, and that kind of thing. So here I was, I did the subjects that I was interested in. I made sure to take mathematics because I realized I would need it. I didn't want to not have it, and in case it would curtail me. I remember being very interested in biology. I did an economics subjects. I did accounting, just so that you could, cover the bases and whatever. So here I get through matric, and then it's time for university. And then I remember there's this thing where I thought, let me be a psychologist. Let me be specifically a child psychologist. That might have been my experience, talking, wanting to sort of say, let me go and help other children who have difficulties, etc. So I remember getting to university, and I think I did 1 or 2 semesters of that. And then came this. So around 2010, South Africa hosted the FIFA World
Cup. All right.
So that holiday was going to be long. This was my first year in university.
Okay.
That holiday was going to be long, right? And I knew I couldn't sit around doing nothing.
Yeah.
So I started looking around for work that I could be doing in that time, just to gain some kind of experience, something that would keep me engaged. So I remember, and here's the remarkable story. I remember thinking, why don't I write to the set of where they produce these soapies, right? These dramas.
Okay.
And I could, get water for the stars, you know what I mean? Like why, help clear the set or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
So this is what I'm thinking. I write an email to ETV, right? And it somehow lands up at the news department. That's not what I had in mind, right? It lands up at the news department, and they write back to me and they say, hi, Christine. Yes, we allow students to come for a week and observe or whatever, to just to shadow, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not going to say no to that, right? So I remember was it June, around there? Going to Hyde Park, that's where ETV studio was. It was ETV then ETV News.
Yeah. And
walking into the newsroom. And I'll never forget that week. It was such a remarkable week. So basically, I get in, and then they say, tag along with the journalists as they do their stories. So I get tagged along, and this one journalist, I remember we drove out to Pretoria. It was a story of one of these serial rapists who'd finally been caught. I'll never forget it. And he was now appearing for the first time. And the issue was, is he going to be remanded in custody, or could you potentially apply for bail on that same day? I'll never forget, you know, they were the Women's League, the ANC Women's League. They were outside. I'll never forget, this woman had this mean whistle. She, you know what, they were like sort of like doing outside the court to say, you know, as women saying, keep this man in jail for all that, you know. I just remembered like being in I'd never been in a court before, you know, so I'd gone in for the hearing, and I remember struggling to hear what the judge was saying. Court's a very difficult environment, like you really can't hear, especially when the judges speak softly. And then we got up, we're doing the live crossings, and I just went, wow, that was day one. And then I came back the next day and I thought, oh my goodness, I love this. I ended up, so they gave me 1 week to shadow. I ended up staying the whole, I think it was nearly 2 months. I mean, you know.
Wow.
And I remember going back and thinking, yeah, I'm going to do journalism now. Like, officially, that's what I'm going to go study.
You got initiated into this thing.
That was it. You know, that's how God works, right? So, and I remember saying to my mother, saying, you want to change, whatever. She said, are you sure? You know, and I thank God that she wasn't too resistant. You know, she just said, okay, fine. If this is really what you want to do, we'll pray about it and whatever. Went back to university and changed my majors. And that was it.
So you went into communications?
I studied journalism.
I
studied journalism, yes. I mean, I have different advice today for people who want to get into the industry, but that's not what we're here for.
So you study this. What are some of the experiences you went through, the aha moments of studying?
Well, I mean, so as I'm doing this course, so now I had this perfect arrangement with ETV. Every time that I was on university break, I could go there, unpaid, of course.
Okay.
But I was getting the practical experience. So I would sit in lectures. And, you know, we're being taught the theory, but I'm getting the practical. So that's how God set me up, right? So by the time I finished studying, I had all this vast, you know, I'd been conducting interviews. I had been going alongside reporters as they're compiling their stories, taking part in the process, right? Unofficially, but I was learning either way. So if you combine that cumulative experience, that is almost like 2 strong years of like being out as a journalist in the field. And some of the country's top journalists today are people that mentored me during that time, right? People who you watch today and you read their articles, whatever. So these are people who took me under. Again, also finding myself in an ecosystem of really strong journalists at that time, who took the time to invest in me. People I still have relationships with today. So could you see how God was really setting me up for this whole thing, right? So, you know, because it's one thing to do your university degree, because the practical, that theory cannot prepare you for what you have to do when you get out of there.
Okay.
It doesn't prepare you from that moment where you have to sit and ask a politician questions.
Yeah.
So I already had, I could watch, and then sometimes they say, okay, go and do the interview quickly and bring us back the tape, right? And they'll cut the sound bites of what the minister or whoever has said.
Yeah.
You wouldn't see me or anything, but that was already the preparation that I was getting. So our work is really, really practical. It's the point that I don't necessarily think people need to study 3-year-long degrees of journalism, right? I can teach you that in maybe 6 months and invest in other aspects of your knowledge base.
Wow.
But I had the strong practical, and it just means that I was able to go off earlier, right? I was able to do things that would take people a little bit more years after university, accumulating the experience before you could do. Yeah.
So the search for what you could do brought you into the space of journalism.
Yes.
Where's your faith at this stage, and how is it contributing to your trajectory to get into that space?
I am really rooted and grounded. So I remember early on inquiring about the issue of, understanding that news is 24/7, that I have the Sabbath, right?
Okay.
And I remember just not compromising on that, because that had been ingrained on me. So I've been keeping the Sabbath my whole life, basically, right? So Saturday is a day. So sun goes down Friday until it goes down again Saturday. These are God's hours. And I remember at that time, there'd been this opportunity. Obama had come to South Africa, and he was giving a lecture in Soweto.
I remember, yes.
And this was on a Saturday. I could get in if I was going to go and be crew with the ETV people. Yeah. And I remember just knowing I'm not going to do that, because in as much as I would love to see Obama, and I can get in guaranteed with the crew.
So you forfeited.
That is something. And I remember even like being told.
I hope Obama can hear this. That this African girl said, I ain't going to come, sir.
I mean, I wouldn't have been able to meet him or anything, or I don't think so, but we would have been in the room, and we would have, you know, and many people wanted to be in there, you know. But I remember just knowing, you know, at the Sabbath, you know, the fact that I'm even here is God. So I'm not going to start changing. And I remember people
Yeah.
saying to me, oh, you know, in this industry, this is a bit of a difficult one, right? Because news doesn't stop on a particular day.
It's 24/7.
It's 24/7.
Yes.
But I knew God would see me through. God would, you know, I didn't have it figured out. But I knew that's God's problem, not mine.
This is a real problem many young people
Yes,
are facing
yes,
out there,
yes.
from university
Yes,
level with
100%.
exams
Yeah.
into the workspace. And you telling me God
Yeah.
has given you that victory,
Yes,
and you have
yes.
been in this very difficult
Yes,
24/7 industry.
100%. Even the job I have in Germany now, I remember when I was talking to the people who were hiring me, I have the email where I said I don't work on Sabbath. And I remember thinking, oh, you know, it could be that this opportunity goes,
That's it.
right? And I didn't want to lose it, but I said it is what it is, but I'm not going to, you know, compromise on that. And I'll never forget, I still have the email. A man called Roger Evans, he writes back and he says, oh, you know, that's fine. We can work it around the schedule, right? So but I need you to understand that I was at that level because of how this had been ingrained in me. I had been taught about the Sabbath, how you don't compromise on the Sabbath. There were countless biblical examples of people who stood for their faith and they went on to prosper. We had examples around us, right? We were taught to be faithful with our tithe remittances, etc.
Yes.
So all of these things I had, and again, sometimes I look back at that time and I think that was risky, you know what I mean? Because,
Very.
but I had, this is just, again, being in that ecosystem where your faith is reinforced, the testimony of other people, the teachings in the Bible. This is where my identity was. So this was not just a day that I could this is who I was as a person. And me breaking the Sabbath, as we would call it in our in our words, was a departure from who I was as a person. I sit here today and I can tell you it's one of my biggest blessings, because in an industry where it just doesn't stop, you do need that break. And I have so many colleagues now who say to me, oh, I see what you're onto. Because I could do with that weekly pause. And it isn't just a pause, but it's a recharge because of what the Sabbath is and what you do in the Sabbath hours. So I would go to church and I had no problem. I would actually disconnect and, you know, I'd come back sometimes to make up ground, being there on a Sunday or whatever the case may be. But Sabbath has always been a non-negotiable, and it's not held me back. And I think that is the fear a lot of people have, right?
Yes.
There was an opportunity that didn't work out for me in terms of an international job, right? With an international station. And I tell you today, if I had gotten that job, my life would have been a little bit difficult. We now have the Russia war in Ukraine. People who work for that particular organization are no longer deemed independent journalists. Basically, if you have that organization on your CV, you're going to have a hard time getting a job at other media outlets. So that one was explicitly because of the whole Sabbath arrangement. They said that was not possible for them to accommodate my Sabbath issue. So I let that one go, basically. And so I've never...
But take me through that journey into the space where you are now, because you're no longer with ETV.
Yes, yeah.
You moved on and become part of a global broadcasting network. Where did that come from, and what was the inspiration?
Right,
leaving the country to a
foreign
land whose language I'm not sure you were speaking.
No, and I'm not sure I'm speaking it even today. So ETV was never an official like employment contract. That's why I say God's provision. You know, God provided the perfect training ground. It wasn't. I wasn't being paid for that because there's no framework for that. So I wasn't officially
This is
employed.
you just being driven to
and
learn.
I remember draining my mother's money every morning, wanting taxi money to go to Hyde Park and come back, right?
Wow.
And she was just unrelenting. I remember sometimes she was scratching at the bottom of her bag trying to make up these coins so that I could get to ETV.
Yeah.
But this was great. And, you know, I'd even go there sometimes. Like, I'm thinking, if I buy lunch, how am I going to get home? And the journalist just spoiling me with food. So I have so many stories I can tell you, because I was now the favorite, they called me an intern. I wasn't even officially an intern, if we're being honest. But, you know, God, again, you know, this is the thing. When God opens a door for you, no one can close it. I remember one time a lady at HR saying to me, you know, we're not even allowed to be letting you in here like this because you're working and you're not, you know, we could get in trouble for this.
For the labor law,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I remember that HR lady, what had happened is that my pass had expired to get in and out. So obviously they were the ones who were renewing whatever. She says, you're still here. You're not supposed to. Who is doing this? And then go speak to management. I says, oh, just leave her. You know, all of these things that God was doing.
God opening and keeping those doors open.
God was doing that. And then I remember my last year of university, this was crucial because funding was going to become an issue. And I don't know if you're familiar with CNBC Africa. Yes. So they have this trust where they do these bursaries, and they actually funded my final year of university just in time, because that's when the resources were kind of getting difficult.
Wow.
And they do this, but part of the thing is when you're done, you have to, you've got to work for them for a year.
Okay.
Right? So the good thing is, as soon as my studies were done, I had work to go to.
Great.
So I had this job, and remember all this experience that I've accumulated over the years, right, at ETV. So by the time I got to CNBC, I could be sent out and just do the job and come back.
You had hands-on experience.
I had the hands-on experience, and I think I was there just about a year, and I remember winning my first award, my first recognition at the Vodacom Journalism Awards.
Really?
Being recognized as the best newcomer. My mother keeps the certificate at home. Yeah, I was as the best newcomer. So you can imagine. So just the trajectory that I was on. And then I had hardly been working for 2 years, like officially. Again, that seed my father planted, dream big. So, you grow up, you're watching the big networks, the CNNs or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's how I landed up going to join an international news station. It's the German international broadcaster, Deutsche Welle.
Yes.
Yeah.
DW.
Exactly.
I always watch you there, and I'm like, go girl, that's good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. And how is that going so far? How's the Lord leading you in that?
Oh wow, that's been amazing. So I had been thinking before that, maybe go to France, learn French, etc. Because I figured if I came back here to the African continent, the whole Francophone Africa would also be a world that I could report on, etc. But as God would have it, the opportunity opened up in Berlin. Now my stereotypes and about Berlin, I didn't think that I would survive there. But again, testament to what God does. I get there, and I was really in a foreign land. Nothing is familiar. I can't
Nothing
understand
sounds
the language.
familiar to your ears and eyes.
It was really, and I sometimes even wonder, how did I make it home from the airport? Do you know what I mean? Because, just that having to navigate the public transport, I didn't know which way is the train going. Where am I?
Yeah.
But somehow making it to where I was supposed to be. And back I remember because, so I left home, obviously I didn't have like a SIM card. So I think when I left the airport and out of the Wi-Fi, how did I make it? Do you remember? I was asking people, showing, and got to where I needed to be. So this is what God does.
Yeah.
And now I'm in this in this network, and God has just exceeded my expectations in terms of the opportunities that I've been given, the stories that I could report on, the training, all of these things that you really need in our industry to be able to grow as a journalist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This must have grown you in many ways.
Oh, yeah.
Because you are a young professional out of your parents' home.
Yes.
You are on your own now.
Yeah.
And you're having to dig in your own bag for your own allowances and coins.
Yeah.
And feed yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's growing you in a particular way. You're quite young. Your life is still before you.
Yeah.
I don't believe this will be your last one. There are greater things that you're going to get into, and we'll get into that in a moment, your future aspirations. But I'm now quite interested to drill a little bit more on, because this is a story about how God leads you in your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
If you were to look back now,
and
maybe pick out one or two key moments that were very catalytic, those pivot moments, when you say, this was a pivot.
Yeah.
Though it was a good or bad one, God pivoted me here.
Yeah.
He led me here. And what was the impact on your life to today?
Wow. Well, I think for me, there aren't these grand, obvious ones. But I think for me, I would say it's in the daily, right? So I told you about, my father's death and how that sort of derailed me, and then, getting back on track. But when I journal today, God is so graceful that he even brings things to memory, right? So there would be conversations that people have had with me. One of them being my mother's younger brother, my uncle Seguro Ali. In his words, reinforcing the identity of a woman and how she needs to carry herself in the world. All of these, sort of conversations that I can now piece together, and I can see how God was using certain people to make these interventions. But for me, I remember moving to Berlin. I was 23.
Wow.
completely, clueless. I mean, I didn't even understand at the time just the magnitude of what I'd done in terms of that life change, right? I didn't know a soul in Berlin. But just this courage and this confidence, again, all of this was to say, God's brought me here, I can do it, right? I don't know how I'm going to talk to people there, but God's going to help me through it. And I remember every single day getting to the office, first thing I'd go do is pray, because now you've gotten in. I don't have international journalism experience, right? I'm coming from reporting on the stock market in Johannesburg. So I remember at that time the war in Syria was raging, right? If you had given me a map and say, show me Syria, I probably wouldn't have been able to tell you. Do you know what I mean? So I was on the back foot, to such an extent that I knew where my limitations were. But I remember having the confidence to walk in every day after having said my prayer. And I'd walk in, then I'd be given an assignment. Okay, you're doing a report on this and you need to get started. You need to write. And if I can look back 10 years later, I never had a big incident, where things go wrong. Because, in our industry, someone writes the wrong copy or inexperience, you make a mistake, and none of these things have happened to me. I can sit back and I can tell you today that it was just that dependence, that knowing. So I think for me, I was thrown in the deep end. And that was God's way of teaching me dependency. Right. So I've always been in that space where I feel like, okay, I don't really have everything it takes to be here, but God's brought me here so I can, if I stay close to God, He'll help me through it. And that's how He's carried me through all of my assignments, right? You go out, in the international news game, you go out on assignment, these big networks, CNNs, whatever, senior, journalists, Christian Amanpours of this world, people who've been in this game for years, and you're on the same story. And you say, how am I going to deliver? And I would tell you, I look back and I think that, not even think, I can see how God was coming through, answering those prayers, in that I was able to deliver. I could stand there and I could deliver because God was doing that. So for me, it's always been, in all that God has put me through, He's been there every day. So you've asked about what were these big sort of moments.
The pivot moments.
For me, it's just those everyday moments, knowing that, okay, I'm going into that newsroom. I don't know what assignment's coming my way, but I can already tell you now, right? I'm not there. I'm not ready for it. But you know what? God is going to see me through. And in my research, in whoever I speak to, whatever, it would come together because God would provide in that way. So for those people who look at their lives and think, what's my big moment? Well, where's that, aha moment, as Oprah refers to it. If you don't have that, that's just look through the minor details. You'll see God. You'll see God in those. And that's, to me, we don't consider those extraordinary moments, but those were daily victories that kept me going every single day, knowing that the task at hand is big, but I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength.
Oh, that's a beautiful scripture right there. Is that your favorite?
One of them.
One of them?
One of them.
Okay, I'm going to come back to
the one
more.
I whip out whenever there's something big coming.
Yes. And you're quite right that sometimes we don't have those breaking moments, when things really go messy and God turns us. So that's how life is so beautiful for some of us, but also for others. They get this life event that turns everything upside down. And from there, it's almost like their whole world is gone and they start afresh and they can see God is saying, go this way. But for you, it's been those moment by moment, day by day, line upon line, scripture upon scripture. But your faith is still growing.
100%.
Given those moment by moment. But what I guess my challenge to you is, of course, to a young person listening out there, is there are moments you feel either you are way ahead of your time, Lord, please slow me down a little bit, I'm too far exposed, or there are times you feel I'm not worthy for this one. This one is way beyond me. Nothing has prepared me for this. So how do you practically, you talked about prayer.
Yes.
But prayer is prayer. Prayer is not the doing. So how do you get to do things?
Wow, I guess so. A number of opportunities have presented themselves over the years in the professional space. And again, I've the only confidence I've had is to say, if God's brought this, I can do it, right? But I think also I have become that person where I'm really engaged in the work that I do. And, you know, Melusi, I would do this for free, right? If I would, you don't have to pay me for doing this. I hope people I work with will never know this, but I love this.
Okay.
Like I said, God tailored this profession for me, right? And one of the things that I had to really sort of, you know, sometimes you're tempted to say, oh, we're in the modern world, God, we have these things called AI or whatever.
Yeah.
But I thought to myself, hang on a second, God's been there. If God knows this industry, right?
Yeah, and
God
he knows you.
And he knows what it takes to win in this game and all of that. And so I've always, like, this, once I understood that God can see me through, God can even help me with story ideas. Because, you know, as journalists, we also need to pitch, we need to think about what we're reporting on, we need to think about angles. Sometimes I find myself mid-interview, something comes that I personally hadn't written down. You know what I mean? So that's, to me, is it's also staying prepared, right? So when you pray, you don't just pray and you go out there, but it's then staying. And, you know, in my research, I spend a lot of time listening to people, catching up on issues, because in my reporting work today, we're talking about the war in Ukraine, but there'll be reference to a Minsk agreement that was signed the year I was born. And this becomes relevant to the conversation. So you're now having to
go back,
familiarize yourself with those. So I spend a lot of time, and God leads me to the right sources. God also presents the right people who are able to, you know, and just the access to the information. So I devote a lot of time just learning and familiarizing myself and having conversations with people that will add value to the work that I do. So again, it's a hobby. My job is literally my hobby, because my job is to learn, is to go out and talk to people and to understand issues. And then, you know, God just presents me to the right sources where I should be reading, the right interviews. I stumble upon things on YouTube or the algorithm brings. None of these things to me just come by accident, right? The way I function is to say, okay, this is God actually leading my steps for you in all of those things.
What I hear is extreme focus. Okay. And also passion.
Yes.
You said you can do this.
You don't have to repeat it
because someone must. You can do this. And your heart and mind and soul and spirit are committed to this because God found it for you. And he just, I guess the bug bit when you first walked 100%. Into that space and you're like, this is me. You even went and changed your modules, you said. Because that's the focus.
That was it.
You were prepared to change yourself. Now, let's do a little bit of reflections. I would like us to perhaps just taper it down to practical reflections and maybe advice you might give. If you were to talk to someone who listens to your story today and you want to inspire them in terms of their faith, what are some of the practical breakdowns you could give them to grow their faith? Maybe it's a young girl sitting out there. I know Clay is mixing behind the scenes right now, and I'm sure she's eager to listen. What is the secret sauce or the secret code to success according to your own life? What has really been the recipe?
Oh, guys, like, I can't overstate this, right? This God that we worship, right? The God who created the heavens and the earth. I was listening to Elon Musk the other day talking about, you know, they're doing the robots. And he was saying one of the things we're struggling with now is the aspect of manual dexterity. That is how the robots move their fingers. And he says how intricate our fingers are, right? They're able that you can take your fingers and you could do something as you can put a thread through a needle, right? And you just how complicated the complicated movements that your hands can make, right? Humans are struggling to replicate these things.
Just that.
And I think sometimes as young people, we get tempted to study the Elon Musks of this world and all these things because these are the ones we see. And yet these people, I mean, if you think about the fact that even our brain capacity, right, we don't even use about 10%, if I'm not mistaken, of our brain.
That's
Do you know
correct.
what I mean?
Absolutely correct.
So once you figure out that this God that you're relegating, right, is actually, that is your secret sauce, right? It's God who's going to put you ahead. Now, again, it took this moment where I realized, no, man, God knows this industry. God's been there, right? Even if God didn't form the industry to what God has been seeing how journalism has evolved over the years. So he even knows how I should position myself for where the industry is going. So once you understand that you need to follow God's path for you, that He said that He knows what is best, because God has this, you talked about hindsight, but He has this perfect vision that looks into the future. Now, practically, what does that mean? When we say read the Bible every day, something is happening when you're doing that, right? When you're spending those moments in devotion, something is happening inside of you. You might not realize it, you might not feel a fuzzy feeling, but something is happening. Yeah. Seeds are being planted. God is communicating something. When you're in prayer and I consider prayer to be a therapy for me. This is my session to really just debrief. And sometimes I can hear what's going wrong in my own life by the prayers that I'm praying. Just hearing your prayers, yeah? Just hearing yourself pray. But I say, I was having a conversation the other day, and I say, you have no idea. And the Bible is full of relevance to our lives today. We're tempted to think, that book that was said in the Middle East or wherever in those days. Stories, yeah. I am telling you, the practicality of the Bible to me is the reason I'm still a Christian. The fact that it applies to my life today. And I've moved, I live in a part of the world now where these are secular societies. So the Europeans have moved away from Christianity, right? And I look at people's lives and I don't see that they're all the more better for it, right? If anything, I observe a restless society where people might not have problems about where the next meal is going to come from because of, the welfare states and the economy, etc. Yeah. But something is still missing in the lives of people. So I then say, I go to work every day and there's this quiet confidence that comes from God. People talk of imposter syndromes and all of these things. Yeah. I don't suffer from that because I know if God's put me somewhere, He's going to carry me through. God is best positioned to lead you in your career, but also to better you for it. And all that time you spend in devotion, in communion with God, as you're reading God's word, as you're understanding what it is God wants you to be, how He expects you to be, you're just aligning yourself with that vision. And I've seen myself become a better person over the years. There are things, opportunities in this time that God has denied me, and I now understand why God has done these things. But if you go out into the world on your own strength, in your own power, in your own arrogance, right? You're destined to make mistakes that will derail you. Yeah. But there's this real practical aspect of God has set something up for you. He needs to ready you for that, right? Think about Moses being in the wilderness 40 years, right? Yeah. God was shaping him up to be the leader that he needed to be. And so I missed that almost at a point in my life. And I think a lot of us struggle with that concept because you think, how can that be? Surely it needs to be, I need to go and get the stellar degree and get the grade. Yeah, all of these things. But if you're not ready for certain things, right, these things will go past you. And a great education is important. But, man, the real flex is walking into what God has ordered for you.
Wow. You've no idea what you've just said there. Because this is one of the things in the coaching space, people struggle with. You know how we struggle with our resolutions?
Yes.
We set them by February, they're gone. Yeah. Because they're not premised on thus says the Lord, or on God's purpose for your life.
Exactly.
So I'm trying to help people to understand that Moses did not set a strategic goal of how he's going to deliver Israel. No. When he tried his own way, he ended up running away from Egypt. Yes. So he had to depend on God to give it to him. Exactly. Abraham took a journey where he didn't know where he was going because God said, I will show you. Yes. So people need to get back into the groove of saying, God, show me what I must do. And when God shows you what you must do, it comes to you already complete.
100%. And the other thing is, this is no disrespect to anybody, but I don't, even senior colleagues in my industry, there's no one person I look to and tell you, oh, that's who I want to be. Because I've understood I'm shortchanging myself. I want to be what God has planned for me.
Wow.
And that people need to understand that you're looking around you. You can only dream as far as you can see. There's this whole conversation about, people of color and, people need to see themselves before, in other people. And I say, yes, all good and well, but actually what we need to be embracing is God's plan for our lives, because that will exceed right?
Whatever.
So have a plan. Yes, you want to be an accountant, but don't look at this person and say, I want to be this, or no. Be what God has set out for you to be. But you need to position yourself for that. And how you do that is you spend time in communion, in devotion with God. And this is the aspect of our lives that we neglect so often. This is where we get recharged. You know, one of the things a lot of people struggle with is a sense of purpose. All right. Yeah. Sometimes you wake up and you think, you know, what is this? Especially when you're not where you want to be. And I say to people, when you read the Word of God, you will understand what your purpose is, right? And once you have that, you can start working towards that.
I wish I could pause you there, rewind you like we used to do the cassettes.
Exactly.
As I say that again, I want to hear that.
Yeah, because, you know, a lot of people are battling and they're wondering, why am I not where I want to be? And, you know, you encounter people, you know, years out of school and they're just not where. And I say to people, oh my goodness, you know, Moses would have been wandering in that desert 40 years thinking, what is becoming of my life, right? I used to be the greatness I thought I was. Yeah. But people don't understand that, you know, he has something. There was a plan for Moses' life from before he was born, right? He wandered 40 years in the wilderness, but that's how long it took him to understand what God was trying to do, right? By the time he was ready, he said to God, I'm not ready, right? He thought, I'm not ready, but and God said, now you're ready. So some of us are delaying, right? Are delaying, we're holding God back. Because we are not readying ourselves. And the only way we can be is when we get in tune with what is this vision that God has for our lives. And he readies us for that. He puts us in shape for it, to be able to contain and manage what he wants us to do. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, you say Moses' story, and I'm quite intrigued. And you talk a lot about the Bible and spending time in the Bible. Moses is told by God who made the tongue. Oh, yeah. And God says, put your hand in you.
Yeah, comes out, he's a leper.
Take it out.
Yeah.
He's in pain. Because leprosy is very painful.
Yes.
Then he puts it back again. I'm sure you must have been wondering, is it remaining inside here?
Comes out, baby skin. Yeah.
God says, take your rod and throw it down. And he says, pick it up by the tail, which is the most dangerous part. Wow. And from that moment, the little rod of Moses becomes the Lord's rod. Yeah. So what I hear from what you're saying is you didn't import anything from outside. That which you had, that which you are, you have just given it to the Lord and He's using it. Now, you mentioned reading the Bible a lot. How do you read the Bible?
Oh, good question. So I love stories. One. So my default is I go to the stories, right? And then I go to Ellen White and she expands on what the details mean.
Yes.
And that, you know, there you get the revelation, because there are things inevitably that you're going to miss because you don't understand the historical context. You don't understand. Remember, we're reading a translation. So in the original language, as preachers will always say, it's written as such. So to me, that's my favorite bit. When you read a story about, this is what happened. And then Ellen White further unpacks that for you. And that keeps me so engaged. And then you derive the object lesson, because then you say, this was this person's life in this specific time. How is this relevant to me? And you start seeing what God is teaching you. And more recently, it's been the story of David. And if you look at all that happened in David's life, the different challenges he faced, and then the consequences that came after that, and you can really see the practical application for your own life. And that to me is how I stay engaged in the Word of God. Right. Sometimes I'm looking for encouragement, and I'll go and looking for that. You know, in the Psalms 91 is one of my favorites.
Yeah, the longest one.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember committing that one to memory, and I like singing that one. And sometimes I go to the prophetic books, because I think those moments when I think, I'm becoming, too entrenched in all of this, right? We need to step back. And what's the bigger picture? Right?
And prophecy does that, isn't it?
Prophecy has a way of just telling you what
shines the light into the past and the future. Yeah.
What is the bigger picture here? Before we all get consumed in these, what I like that expression, a storm in a teacup, right? Step outside and
try to drown in a cup.
Exactly. Giving you that perspective. So that's how I read the Word of God. And of course, things like our lesson study, helpful with that as well, because then that's a regular routine that you're on.
Yeah. So your most favorite, I know you mentioned Philippians 4:18. Yes. Now you've mentioned Psalms 91.
Psalms 91.
Is there one that you say, this is mine? It's
Psalms
personal?
91. Psalms 91 is mine. It's so reassuring.
Yeah.
Right? It is so reassuring. But in the same way, it reminds me of my obligation to myself, really, that God's given this to us. You know, we've just come out of the 10 days of prayer and talk of the Holy Spirit having been unleashed, right?
Yes.
That power is available to us. And it's up to us to go and tap into it, right? God's not going to force anything on anybody.
Yeah.
So if you don't tap into what God has made available for you, it's not coming your way, right? God, out of his love, will not force anything on us, his children. So Psalms 91 just reminds me of how God has set me up. So whatever I'm feeling on a particular day, even if I'm in a season where I feel defeated, I feel like I've lost something or whatever, that scripture reminds me, right, of how God has set me up.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it just it's reassuring to me.
I'm going to poke a little bit at your story now.
Yeah.
I didn't prepare you for this one.
No.
So to our viewers out there, I'm going to just shoot in the wild and let's see what comes back.
Yeah.
But I know from your life, there's been quite a lot of what God has done for you. Everyone has their fears. What's your greatest fear or nightmare?
Oh, my greatest fear or nightmare. Oh, that's an interesting one. My greatest fear or nightmare. I guess, to be honest, it's death I hate so much because I've experienced it. And so I remember out of my fear of death, I've always said, I started it ages ago. I turn my phone off. I put my phone on flight mode when I'm sleeping, when I go to bed. And it's also because, you know, you get notifications because of the news business that we're in. But for me, it's always been to say, when I turn my phone on, I want to be ready, right?
Okay.
For, you know how news reaches you. So I sometimes there are times when I'm especially fearful, and I will, I'll pray to God and I'll say, oh, you know, I'm about to turn my phone, ready me for whatever messages might be in there. So I have to be honest, I have this, not my death. I mean, my death I'm okay with, oh no, but it's just people close, you know.
Close to you, losing your loved ones.
Yeah, I think because of the experience I've had with that.
And if you had all the money in the world, and you don't have to work for these great organizations you've worked for, what would you do with your life? So I would live in the countryside. Right? I'd live in the countryside where the air is fresh, right? And I'd set myself up out there. Okay. I'll be in nature, away from a road. I don't want to hear the sound of cars driving. That is how deep in the countryside I want to be. And I think I'll be living out there, just, you know, really living that life out in the wild with nature. There's something about that experience that intrigues me. And I always think that one day I'll retire in a place like that. Okay. So that would be me. And do you realize you could actually do that right now? Nothing stops you? Yeah. And I go out, you know, when people have farms, I go out and I see the life, and I think, I mean, again, I'm not doing it for money, and it's really hard if you're doing it, you know, commercially, but if I could just be out there, you know, living off of the earth, so to say, in a place with good climate. Not in the snowy. Living in Europe, brutal winters. But that would be my ideal setting. All right. Yeah. So, what side of you do people not know about? Interesting. I used to think of myself as an extrovert, right? But I realized I'm actually an introvert. As crazy as this might sound, right? So, I am If we met, this is why it's such an uncomfortable setting for me. I've got very good ways of talking about you. So you'll find a lot of people who've been around me for a long time will struggle to really tell you a lot about me, other than, you know. You're always talking about other people. Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, I'm just not that, you know. And I'm also very reserved. So I don't spend a lot of time with people, right? To the point where it can get deep, right? So I wouldn't call them superficial interactions. That, you know, you meet someone, you have lunch together, the conversation's either very professional or we're working on, but I'm not that, I don't really open up quite a bit. There are very few people in this life
who can get me to talk, like that. I think God
so
is
I must celebrate that I've done that today.
Yeah. So I think it's really God. Like I think of it, and sometimes I wonder, like, is that weird? Like, but no, I don't. That's not the realm. I'd rather say, and I listen to people a lot.
Yeah.
So if we sat, we would talk about you a lot, right? And I don't know if people, and maybe people who know me, if they hear this, they'll really understand. Oh, that's really true. Like because because I can feel it when I'm, talking in a place or getting in a conversation that makes me uncomfortable, and I hardly have that feeling, so I know I'm not giving much out. Do you know what I mean?
You're a very introverted person.
Very like reserved, guarded. So in as much as you can think I talk a lot or whatever, if you actually hear what I'm saying, it's not much about me.
They say God has a sense of humor.
Yeah.
So how has he made you laugh in your lifetime?
Some days, I don't know, like some days I find myself in places and I think, God, is this for real? Do you know what I mean? Me, Chris, you know what I mean? And I think...
I've asked myself the same question. There are days I've said, if I die here, would my mother know where I am or my wife know where I am?
This is very interesting places where God has taken me. And, he exceeds my expectations, right? So, sometimes I think, wow, right? I don't think I'm supposed to be a God if we went on paper. Wow. But because you are who you are, here I am, and we're going to do this.
Wow. So, if there's anything you've done in your life, what is the greatest risk you've ever done or taken?
Yeah.
And how has it impacted you?
Wow, I think, just this getting up and leaving home and jumping into something, moving to Berlin back when I did, about 10 years ago now, and starting that up, right? Mm-hmm. And seeing how God helped me through it. It's not, it's a different and a difficult life out there in different ways. Mm-hmm. But that was something, and just staying the course and trusting God. I mean, people sort of sometimes glamorize these things, but it can be such a lonely experience. You can have real moments of isolation, especially when you're, in a new place. You haven't really, you don't have those deep relationships, right? That people typically sort of,
no one will come looking for you.
No.
Say,
so you can,
Christine.
So and in the time that I've been away, like I've had a lot of time alone. A lot of time alone, and people don't understand this, and especially with my job now, where there's also a lot of travel, so there's even more, loneliness, because now you're in a place you're only going to be there for a few days or weeks, whatever the case may be. You don't know people, so there is that aspect to it. But I think I go out every day. You're asking about the risks, so to say. I'll say it started there, just to say, pack the bags and go. You know what I mean? Not to be received by... There was no one waiting at the airport for me when I left for Berlin, right?
And you didn't know how you're going to greet people in Germany?
No. But, it was just one of the things, I'm going to go do this, right? I didn't know if this would be rewarding, but there was also just no quickly, turning back, because I had made the move. And, I knew God would make it work, but that was what it was. And I sit back here today and I think I'm so glad I did it.
And listening to you, you were saying if the younger you was to listen to you today, she will be shocked to say, Christine, how did you get there? Because you never planned this. You never dreamed of being a journalist and a global agency, and here you are still keeping your faith in a foreign country. So the younger you will actually be applauding you to say, how did you get us there?
Yeah, that distraught 14, 15-year-old really
was broken by life,
by that
loss.
And because I don't know, that loss also it worked at my self-esteem, because I thought, why can't I have a dad around? Do you know what I mean? I don't know what it was like. I felt like it was so personal, and so it affected, there was obviously sadness, but also my esteem, right? I started, I don't know if it was like looking down upon myself. I don't know what it was. It was just, and I'd obviously lost this incredible. So for those, I don't know, months were intense for sure. But and just looking, and it's such a different place that I'm in today, right? And all glories to God for that.
Amen. We've talked about a lot of things up to this moment. You have a future aspiration. What has God been whispering to your heart?
God's been saying, one of the things I constantly revert to, and I was actually talking to somebody in the industries today, a good friend, and I was saying to him, the parable of the talents, right? Where
5, 2, and 1.
Yes. And I feel like, okay, so God said, here's something, but now go make more of it. And that's the challenge. And I think now this making more out of it is not just you and yourself must, achieve.
Yeah.
The even where I'm at now in terms of my spiritual maturity, let me just digress for a minute. I think there's been this long sense of how Christianity has and the faith has preserved me.
Yeah.
How, I talked about the protection, I talked about that ecosystem, and I can tell you the growth, right, even in the last 2 years, has been amazing, even for me to see, just the person that I've become, all the more better. I'm not saying I'm Uhuru, but just to say I can see the growth.
Yeah.
So I can see how this Christianity has been good for me, how it's helped me in my life. Now it's this place where you say, okay, but how does it help people around you? Right? It can't just be good for me.
Yeah.
Right? Because Christ was not just
good
good for himself.
You,
yeah.
It's gonna be good
it must
for...
be good. So that's where the challenge is now, to say, no, this can't just be about me ticking boxes, about all the things that, my faith has helped me with, how God is. It must now benefit the people around me. So I think about my career. And look, I can't even claim to say my career has been the most illustrious. But it's to say even my ambitions now say, no, there has to be more than just me achieving milestones.
Yes.
How can I go out there and be the perfect ambassador for the kingdom? I work with a lot of like politicians and diplomats.
Yeah.
I interact with them. And you see these people, wearing the flag for the country. And I say, well, I'm an ambassador.
Wow.
Right?
That's a good
I'm an
way
ambassador.
to look at it.
Yeah, you sit there and you think, oh, these are ambassadors. Well, I'm an ambassador too, I'm an ambassador for heaven. And I think in the society that I'm in, Elder Melusi, you see people languishing, right? And you know what can help them. And I'm saying I need to get better at making the case. I need to get better at, showing people. So there's so much in terms of the gifts that God has given me, the training ground that he gave me. Remember, this started in church when I was young.
Yeah.
How am I going to take this and use it to God's glory? Not just for my own, gratification, my own, oh, look at Christine Mhundwa's CV, which it's been about for the longest time. But to say, no, the influence should go beyond, right?
Yes.
If you look at the people that, the Daniels of this world and these people,
yes,
where they ended up, the Josephs, how that was to God's glory, right? So even in your job or whatever, I'm saying to God, I don't want this to just be about the job, but I really want to be the light and source that I've been called to be that ambassador at that level. So I've opened myself up to that, and I've said to God, okay, I get it. This is what we're supposed to do. And now I'll just let God lead me in that way. Because again, I'm no longer telling God what I want, because I'm so limited. I'm limiting God. I'm really...
Yes.
I'm leaving so much on the table doing that.
Are there any particular projects or initiatives that he's kind of warming you up, or you've started to look into and to start doing?
Yeah. I think it's a ministry. Definitely targeting women of my demographic. So, women who we find ourselves, many of us aren't married yet, and we're in our careers at whatever levels we're in. I have the vocabulary for the life stage that we're in, and what we should be doing, and how much more we should be out there, because of the time that we have. Right, we have this incredible resource called time, and we have ourselves, right, to ourselves for a large part. So I think there's so much more God wants us to accomplish. I meet so many people like this, and I think we shouldn't waste this valuable and precious time. We need to be making something of it. So that's one thing. And I find myself in these spaces where I'm having conversations with women in this space, and I'm seeing the potential that they're having. But other than that, it's just taking my consultancy business and expanding that. I have the skill set. A lot of people are interested in working their way around media training in different parts of the world. So that's, taking shape in a way where I can give people particular skills, empowering skills, in terms of how to communicate, and how to tap into
this new technology, the digital media.
Exactly. Make use of it. I didn't realize how much of a skill it was when people come and ask you, oh, please, can you, then I realized, I can make something out of this, out of helping people, because of the exposure that I have had.
Awesome. I've been asking a lot of questions.
Yes.
I'm sure you have a few things you're saying, but why is he not asking me this?
Not even. I keep thinking he's got another one.
Yeah. Is there anything we've not maybe talked about that you're saying, this one I have to share with this podcast?
No, you've covered all your
I've
bases.
covered all
I'm
the
impressed.
bases.
You're like,
oh, man, thank
you've
you.
really covered all the bases.
Really appreciate
Melvee,
it.
yeah.
And obviously people might be interested in your story. They want to follow you. They want to get engaged in some of the media or trainings or coaching or talks that you want to have with women of your kind, like you said. Where do they find you?
Right. So, I mean, I'm on social media, X.
Yeah?
It's not Twitter. I have to remind myself. Instagram, I have my website.
Yes.
And then there's an email for the professional side. Yes, exactly.
All right.
ChristineMhundwa.com, and then we can sort of interact on that level. But yeah, so I think I'm very easy to reach. I try and be regular on these platforms in terms of how much I'm posting, but I check them enough to be able to see comms coming my way.
I must say, I was humbled when you told me you follow MelVee Sabbath School. And I was
yes, I absolutely love that.
Where does she find it from?
I love it. Yes, no, I absolutely love the MelVee Sabbath School. It's such a rewarding ministry, and that's why it's so great for me to be talking to you today and being in your space, because I remember for me, I think it started around the pandemic, really.
Yes.
Where a lot of content that you've had, sermons, you've captured so many bits of services. I remember there are some even special items, music items that I listened to that were recorded by MelVee. Wow. And I thought, this is precious, because how many times have you sat in church and heard a song or a sermon and thought, oh man, if that was only on tape. And you've done that for us.
Yes.
And then also just bringing together different minds. I recognize some of the faces, so it's always nice. And remember, I'm far from home.
Yes.
So that's like a piece of home coming to me. It's like, oh, Eldam Ta, or some of the people that you have on. It's really nice to listen to Anna Pastor Papu, and you've got great access to people. And it's nice to hear the stories of people I know, people I not personally, but hearing the stories, musicians, people we grew up admiring in church, whatever. So it's really nice.
Yeah,
and
I was quite humbled, and I realized, I've got great people on this social media spaces.
Man, it's so great.
And it's good to be connected with you, and I really appreciate you taking time while you are in Africa to come see us.
Oh, it's been great.
And talk to us. And we will be praying for your plans. We definitely would be happy to collaborate and work with you and whatever we can do. You and media professionally, we are in media by the calling.
Yeah.
And so maybe
we
can
should,
bring these
our worlds
two together
can come
somehow.
Together. Yeah.
And thank you very much, and may God bless you. Wishing you the best as you go back to the cold country.
Yes, and continue with geopolitics, so to say. Thanks so much, Elder.
Viewers and listeners, friends and family, thank you so much. This has been a lovely journey. I hope you liked it. Please do remember to comment below. This is a dynamic story that we have not even gone to the bottom of. There's so much that Christine can share with you. You've got her contacts. We've put them in the screen there. And if you want more, please Google her. You said your username is on your social media.
Christine Mhundwa. And you will find me. Yeah.
You'll find her right there. And God bless you. Looking forward to see you on the next episode. If this has been a blessing, please share it with someone else. Just make sure you click the share on your WhatsApp status, wherever. And if you have not subscribed, I will be blessed to see you as one of our subscribers and following this ministry. And you could join us and even support this work so we can bring more to you. God bless you, and see you on the next episode.